Sarah adjusted her worn-out apron, forcing a smile as she refilled a customer's coffee cup. The smell of sizzling bacon and fresh pancakes filled the small roadside diner, but she barely noticed. Today was Emily's birthday. Her sweet little girl was turning 7, but instead of celebrating, Sarah was stuck working a double shift. She sighed, rubbing her sore hands. The weight of bills, rent, and never-ending responsibilities sat heavy on her shoulders. She had promised Emily a special day, but reality had other plans. "Hey, Sarah," called out Mrs. Jenkins, the elderly woman who worked the morning shifts. "Take a quick breather. I got the counter." Sarah hesitated. A break wasn't something she could afford, literally or figuratively. But she nodded gratefully, grabbing a moment to herself. She stepped outside, taking the deep breath of the crisp evening air, looking up at the neon sign that flickered above the diner's entrance. She thought of Emily, waiting at home with her homemade birthday card. "I'm sorry, baby," she whispered to the wind. What Sarah didn't know was that on this very night, a man was about to walk through the diner's doors, one of the most famous actors in the world. A man in a black cap. The bell above the door jingled. Sarah barely glanced up. The night shift crowd was always the same: truck drivers, late-night travelers, and the occasional lost tourist. But tonight, something was different. A man stepped inside, wearing a black cap and a worn leather jacket. His movements were unassuming, his presence quiet. No one paid him much attention at first. He slipped into a booth by the window, looking out at the empty highway. Sarah grabbed her notepad and approached the table. "Good evening. What can I get you?" she asked, her voice polite but tired. The man looked up, his warm brown eyes meeting hers. There was something familiar about him, but exhaustion blurred her thoughts. "Coffee, black," he said softly. "And whatever you recommend." Sarah scribbled down the order and turned to walk away when something made her pause. His voice. It carried a depth of kindness she couldn't quite place. As she poured the coffee, she stole another glance at him. And then it hit her. Keanu Reeves. Her breath caught. Keanu Reeves, sitting in her tiny roadside diner. It didn't seem real. She turned away quickly, trying to act normal. Celebrities didn't just show up at places like this. Maybe she was imagining things. Maybe he just looked like him. "Everything okay?" Mrs. Jenkins nudged her. Sarah nodded quickly. "Yeah, just long night." She delivered his coffee and plate of homemade apple pie, her hands trembling slightly. Keanu smiled. "Thank you." She managed a polite nod before retreating to the counter. Her heart was racing. A quiet conversation. As the night wore on, the diner emptied out, leaving only Keanu and an elderly trucker nursing his last cup of coffee. Sarah was wiping down the counter when Keanu spoke again. "You look tired," he said gently. She let out a small, tired laugh. "That obvious, huh?" He nodded. "Long shift." She hesitated, then sighed. "Yeah, it's my daughter's birthday. I was supposed to be home with her." Keanu's expression softened. "That's tough." Sarah shrugged. "She understands. She's a good kid." A brief silence settled between them. Then he asked, "What's her name?" "Emily." He nodded, as if tucking the name away in his mind. "She's lucky to have a mom who works so hard for her." Sarah blinked, caught off guard by the sincerity in his voice. She forced a small smile. "I try." Keanu reached for his coffee, taking the slip. Sarah stood in the dimly lit diner, clutching the napkin with trembling fingers. Keanu Reeves had not only left her a heartfelt note, but also a phone number. "Call this number tomorrow." The words felt surreal. Her heart pounded as she carefully folded the napkin, tucking it into her apron pocket like a precious secret. What did he mean? Was it really his number, or was it someone from his team? Would she even dare to call? She exhaled sharply, shaking herself out of the moment. She didn't have time for dreams. There were tables to clean, dishes to wash, and a long walk home ahead. A walk through the cold night. The neon glow of the diner flickered behind her as Sarah wrapped her worn coat tighter around herself. The chill of the night cut through the thin fabric, but she was used to it. The walk home was always the same, past the gas station, down the quiet stretch of road, then through the small alley that led to her apartment complex. But tonight, something was different. Her mind buzzed with questions. Why had Keanu Reeves taken an interest in her? What did the phone number mean? Should she even call? She reached into her pocket, brushing her fingers over the napkin again. It felt like a lifeline. By the time she reached her apartment building, she had convinced herself that it was probably just a kind gesture. Maybe it was a donation to help Emily. Or maybe he had just seen something in her struggle that reminded him of his own past. Either way, she wouldn't know unless she made that call. A birthday wish at midnight. The apartment was dark when she stepped inside. She kicked off her shoes quietly, careful not to wake Emily. But as she walked into the tiny living room, she stopped short. Emily was curled up on the couch, fast asleep, her little fingers still gripping the homemade birthday card she had made for Sarah. Guilt crashed over her like a tidal wave. She had worked so hard to provide for her daughter, but nights like this reminded her how much she was missing. Sarah knelt beside Emily, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," she whispered. Emily stirred, blinking sleepily. "Mommy." "Yeah, baby, I'm home." A small, sleepy smile spread across Emily's face. "Did you see my card?" Sarah's eyes welled with tears. "I did. It's beautiful. I love it." Emily's tiny arms wrapped around Sarah's neck, and for a moment, everything else faded away. No matter how hard life was, this was worth it. The decision to call. The next morning, Sarah stared at her phone, the napkin resting beside it. The number stared back at her, challenging her. She had replayed the events of the night before 100 times in her head. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe she had imagined it all. But what if she hadn't? She took a deep breath, her fingers hovering over the keypad before finally dialing the number. The line rang once, twice. Then, "Hello." Her heart nearly stopped. It was a man's voice, deep, familiar. It was him. Hi," she stammered. "This is Sarah, from the diner." A pause. Then, "Sarah, hey, I was hoping you'd call." Her breath caught. "You were?" "Yeah. Listen, I know this might seem strange, but I wanted to help." Her stomach twisted. "Help?" Keanu hesitated. "I've met a lot of people, Sarah, and I know what it's like to struggle. You remind me of someone I used to know." Her throat tightened. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he said gently. "Just hear me out." Sarah nodded, even though he couldn't see her. Then, Keanu Reeves made an offer that left her speechless. An offer she never expected. "Would you and Emily like to meet me for breakfast?" he asked. Sarah nearly dropped the phone. "Breakfast?" "Yeah. Nothing fancy. Just pancakes and some good coffee." She blinked. I don't know." "Why?" Keanu chuckled softly. "Because I think you deserve a day off. And Emily deserves a real birthday breakfast." Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. She should say no. It was crazy. She barely knew him. But when was the last time someone had offered to do something kind for her without expecting anything in return? She glanced at Emily, who was happily playing with her old teddy bear. "Maybe, just this once." "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, we'd love to." "Great, there's a small cafe downtown. I'll text you the address. I'll see you both there in an hour." Sarah swallowed the lump in her throat. "We'll be there." A breakfast that changed everything. An hour later, Sarah and Emily stood outside a small, cozy cafe. Sarah had dressed Emily in her best outfit, a pink sweater and jeans that were just slightly too big. She herself had pulled on a simple blouse and jeans, hoping she didn't look too out of place. Emily was bouncing with excitement. "Who are we meeting, Mommy?" Sarah hesitated. Just a friend. She still couldn't believe this was happening. Then, the door to the cafe opened. Keanu Reeves stepped out, a warm smile on his face. "Hey, Sarah. Hey, Emily." Emily's eyes went wide. "Monty. Fats." Sarah squeezed her hand. "I know, sweetheart." Keanu knelt down so he was eye level with Emily. "Happy birthday, Emily." Emily giggled shyly. "Thank you." Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. A tiny, beautifully wrapped gift. Sarah's breath hitched. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," Keanu interrupted gently. "Open it, Emily." Emily's fingers fumbled with the wrapping before revealing a small silver charm bracelet. A tiny star dangled from it. Her eyes lit up. "It's so pretty." Keanu smiled. "You're a star, kiddo. Don't forget that." Sarah swallowed past the lump in her throat. This wasn't just kindness. This was something more. And she had a feeling their lives were about to change in ways she never could have imagined. Sarah sat across from Keanu Reeves in the warm, cozy cafe, still struggling to believe this was real. Emily, sitting between them, happily examined her new charm bracelet, the silver star dangling as she twisted her wrist back and forth. "Do you like it?" Keanu asked her gently. Emily grinned. "It's beautiful. Thank you, Mr. Keanu." He chuckled. "Just Keanu is fine, kiddo." Sarah took a shaky breath, her fingers wrapped around the coffee mug in front of her. It had been a long time since she had sat down for a meal she didn't have to cook, serve, or clean up after. She cleared her throat, glancing at Keanu. "I don't know how to thank you for this." "You don't have to," he said simply. "I just wanted to do something nice for you both." Sarah bit her lip. "But why?" Keanu sighed, his warm brown eyes filled with something Sarah couldn't quite place. "Because I've been where you are." "Not exactly, but I know what it's like to struggle, to lose someone, to keep going because you have to, not because it's easy." She stared at him. She had read stories about Keanu Reeves, about the losses he had suffered, the tragedies he had endured. But hearing it from him, even in such a small way, made it feel different. "Sometimes people just need a little kindness," he continued, "a little reminder that they're not alone." Sarah swallowed the lump in her throat. How long had it been since someone had reminded her of that? A breakfast full of surprises. The smell of fresh pancakes and maple syrup filled the air as a waitress set their plates down. Emily clapped her hands excitedly, immediately digging into her pancakes. Keanu smiled. "Good, huh?" Emily nodded enthusiastically, her cheeks stuffed like a chipmunk's. "Monty never makes pancakes this big." Sarah laughed, shaking her head. "Thanks, kid." Keanu chuckled. "Well, today's a special day. Gotta go all out." For the first time in what felt like forever, Sarah allowed herself to relax. They ate, they laughed. They talked about silly things, movies, dreams, Emily's love for drawing. But beneath it all, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was happening. Keanu wasn't just here for a friendly breakfast. There was something else, an offer that left her speechless. As they finished eating, Keanu leaned forward, his expression turning more serious. "Sarah," he said gently, "can I ask you something?" She hesitated, suddenly nervous. "Of course." He studied her for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. "If you could change something about your life right now, what would it be?" Sarah blinked. I don't know." He tilted his head. "Really?" She bit her lip. "I mean, obviously, I'd want more time with Emily. I'd want to not worry about rent or bills or how I'm going to afford new shoes when she outgrows the ones she has." Keanu nodded, listening intently. "But that's just life," she continued. "You work hard, you do your best, and you hope it's enough." Keanu exhaled slowly. "Sarah, what if I told you that maybe, just maybe, you don't have to do this alone anymore?" Her heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" He hesitated before finally saying it. "I want to help you." Sarah's breath caught. Keanu, I don't understand. He leaned forward. I don't just mean a one-time thing. I mean real help. You're working yourself to exhaustion. You barely get to see Emily. And from everything I've seen, you're an incredible mother who deserves more than just barely scraping by. Sarah felt like the ground was tilting beneath her. I can't accept charity. It's not charity, he said firmly. It's an opportunity. She shook her head, her hands trembling. I don't. Just hear me out, he interrupted gently. She swallowed hard. Okay. He took a deep breath. I want to give you a chance to start over. A new job. A new home. A way to actually enjoy your life with Emily. Sarah stared at him, stunned. A new job. He nodded. I have friends, good people who own businesses, restaurants, and production companies. I can help you find something stable, something that pays better, something that lets you be home for your daughter. Her head was spinning. Keanu, this is too much. He smiled softly. You're not taking advantage of anything. I'm offering because I want to, because I can, and because I think you deserve a break. Tears welled in her eyes. She wanted to say no. She wanted to be proud, to stand on her own 2 feet. But then she looked at Emily, her sweet little girl who had spent too many nights alone, waiting for her mom to come home. Was her pride really more important than giving Emily the life she deserved? Her voice shook. What kind of job? Keanu's smile widened. Something that doesn't involve working double shifts at a diner, I promise you that. Sarah let out a watery laugh, wiping her eyes. I don't know what to say. Just say you'll think about it, Keanu said gently. She exhaled shakily. Okay, I'll think about it. Keanu nodded. Good, that's all I ask. But in her heart, Sarah already knew the answer. Because for the first time in years, she felt like she had a choice. A new beginning. As they left the cafe, Sarah felt lighter than she had in a long time. Keanu walked beside them, hands in his pockets as Emily skipped ahead, humming happily. You okay? Keanu asked softly. Sarah nodded. Yeah, I don't know how to process all this. He smiled. Take your time. No pressure. She looked up at him, really looked at him. He wasn't just some celebrity. He was a genuinely good person, someone who understood. Maybe this was fate. Maybe this was a second chance. And maybe, just maybe, she was finally ready to take it. Sarah sat on the worn-out couch in her tiny apartment, staring at the napkin with Keanu Reeves' numbers still scribbled on it. It had been 2 days since their breakfast together, and she still couldn't fully wrap her head around what had happened. Keanu Reeves, the famous Hollywood actor, the man known for his kindness, had offered to help change her life. A new job, a new home, a fresh start. And yet, she still hadn't called him back. Emily sat cross-legged on the floor, playing with her tiny bracelet, spinning the silver star between her fingers. Mommy. Sarah blinked. Yeah, sweetheart. Emily looked up with wide, innocent eyes. Are we really gonna see Mr. Keanu again? Sarah hesitated. Would you like that? Emily grinned. Yeah, he's really nice, and he said we deserve good things. Sarah's heart clenched. She had spent so long struggling that she had convinced herself she didn't deserve more. That this life of exhaustion and sacrifice, was just how it had to be. But Emily believed otherwise. Was Sarah really going to let her own fear keep them trapped in this cycle? She inhaled deeply, reached for her phone, and finally dialed the number. The line rang once, twice. Then, "Hey, Sarah." Keanu's warm voice came through. Her throat tightened. "Hey, I was hoping you'd call." She let out a nervous laugh. I've been thinking." Keanu didn't rush her. And she swallowed hard. "I think I'd want to say yes." An unexpected visit. Later that evening, Sarah paced the tiny living room, wiping her clammy hands on her jeans. Keanu had asked if he could come by, and she had agreed, though now she was second-guessing herself. He was a movie star. What would he think of her tiny apartment? The second-hand furniture, the peeling wallpaper. A knock at the door snapped her out of her thoughts. Emily raced toward it, practically bouncing on her toes. It's him. It's him. Sarah took a deep breath and opened the door. Keanu stood there in a black hoodie and jeans, holding a small brown paper bag. He smiled. I brought cookies. Sarah let out a soft laugh, stepping aside. Come on in. As he walked in, he didn't look at the apartment the way she feared he would. He didn't scan it with judgment or pity. Instead, he smiled at Emily, then looked at Sarah with genuine warmth. This is a cozy place, he said. Sarah exhaled in relief. Thank you. Keanu set the bag of cookies on the counter and sat down on the couch. So, you're saying yes? Sarah nodded slowly. I think so. I mean, I still don't know what the job would be or how any of this works. But I know I don't want to keep living like this. I want to be there for Emily. I want to give her more. Keanu leaned forward. That's all I wanted to hear. Her chest tightened. But I need to know something. Why are you doing this? Really? Keanu sighed, his expression softening. Because someone once did the same for me. Sarah's breath caught. I know what it's like to be alone, to struggle, to feel like the whole world is resting on your shoulders, he continued. When I was younger, there were people who helped me, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. And I never forgot that. Sarah's eyes stung with unshed tears. You're not just a random person, Sarah, Keanu said. You're a mother who's doing everything she can for her kid. You're strong, you're kind, and you deserve a chance to actually live instead of just survive. A tear slipped down Sarah's cheek. I don't even know how to thank you. Keanu smiled. You don't have to. Just take the chance. The job offer. The next morning, Keanu picked them up and drove them downtown. Sarah felt like she was dreaming as they pulled up to a beautiful building with large glass windows. This is it, Keanu said. Sarah glanced at him. What is this place? A media company, he explained. They do a little bit of everything. Marketing, events, content production. The owner is a friend of mine, and they need a reliable office assistant. Sarah's heart pounded. Office work. He nodded. Monday through Friday, regular hours. No double shifts, no working till 2 a.m., and it pays well. She inhaled shakily. I've never done office work before. Keanu chuckled. You're a single mom, Sarah. You multitask, handle stress, and solve problems every day. If you can do that, you can do this. Sarah bit her lip. Could she really do this? Then she looked at Emily, who was staring up at the building with excitement. And suddenly, she knew the answer. Okay, she whispered. I'll try. Keanu grinned. That's all I ask. The first day of a new life. A week later, Sarah stood in front of a mirror, adjusting the blouse she had borrowed from a neighbor. It was her first day at her new job, and she was equal parts excited and terrified. Emily sat on the bed, swinging her legs. Mommy, you look pretty. Sarah smiled, kneeling beside her. You think so? Emily nodded. And you're gonna do great. Sarah hugged her tightly. I hope so, sweetheart. Keanu had arranged for a local daycare to take Emily in while Sarah was at work. For the first time in years, Sarah didn't feel like she was drowning. She had a job, a stable one, a future that wasn't just endless exhaustion. And all of it had started because one man had seen her, had really seen her, and had decided to help. Sarah took one last deep breath and grabbed her bag. It was time to step into her new life. A letter from Keanu. That evening, after her first successful day, Sarah walked into her apartment to find an envelope on the counter. Confused, she picked it up and opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. Sarah, this is just the beginning. You're stronger than you know, And I have no doubt you're going to make something amazing out of this opportunity. You and Emily deserve the world. Never forget that. Your friend, Keanu. Sarah clutched the letter to her chest, tears slipping down her cheeks. This wasn't just kindness. This was family. And for the first time in a long time, Sarah believed in something more than just survival. She believed in hope. Sarah woke up early, just as the sun's soft glow seeped through the blinds of her tiny apartment. But today felt different. For the first time in years, she wasn't waking up dreading the day. There was no double shift waiting for her, no aching feet from standing on diner floors, no last-minute scrambling to find someone to watch Emily. Instead, she had a real job, one with stability, a future, and the promise of something better. She glanced over at Emily, who was still curled up under her blanket, hugging her teddy bear. The tiny silver star charm on her bracelet glinted in the morning light. Sarah smiled. "This is for you, baby." She slipped out of bed quietly, trying not to wake her daughter, and headed to the kitchen to make breakfast. As she poured cereal into a bowl, she noticed the letter Keanu had written sitting on the counter. She had read it a dozen times already, but she picked it up again. You and Emily deserve the world. Tears pricked her eyes. She still couldn't believe that someone like Keanu Reeves had stepped into her life, not as a fleeting act of kindness, but as a real friend who genuinely wanted to help. First days and growing confidence. The next few weeks passed in a blur. Sarah adjusted to her new job quickly, learning the ins and outs of office work. It was different from the fast-paced chaos of the diner, but in a good way. She no longer had to deal with rude customers, long hours on her feet, or the constant anxiety of not making ends meet. Instead, she had coworkers who were kind, a supportive boss, and the ability to breathe for the first time in years. Emily had also adjusted well. Keanu had helped arrange for a wonderful daycare near Sarah's workplace, meaning she could drop Emily off in the morning and pick her up after work without worrying about babysitters or late-night shifts. One evening, as they sat on the couch watching cartoons, Emily turned to her mom with a big smile. "Mommy, you're happy now." Sarah froze. "What?" Emily giggled. "You used to be tired all the time, but now you smile more." Sarah felt a lump form in her throat. She hadn't realized just how much Emily had noticed. She pulled her daughter close, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "I am happy, sweetheart, and I promise, I'll keep making things better for us." Emily beamed. "I like Mr. Keanu. He made everything better." Sarah chuckled softly. "Yeah, baby, he really did." Little did Sarah know, Keanu wasn't done helping just yet. A dinner invitation. A few days later, Sarah's phone buzzed with a message. "Keanu. Hey, how's work going?" Sarah smiled. She hadn't seen him in a while, though they had exchanged a few texts. She quickly typed back. "Sarah, it's going great. I actually like it. Thank you so much." A moment later, another text popped up. "Keanu, glad to hear it. How about dinner? My treat." Sarah's breath caught. Dinner? Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. It wasn't a date. Of course not. He was just being nice. But still, why did her heart race at the thought? She finally replied. "Sarah, that sounds great. Emily would love to see you." Keanu sent a thumbs-up emoji. "Keanu. Cool. I'll pick you guys up at 6. Sarah bit her lip, staring at the message for a long moment before responding. "Sarah. See you then." An evening full of surprises. That evening, Keanu pulled up outside Sarah's apartment in a sleek black SUV. She had dressed up a little. Not too much, just a nice blouse and jeans. Emily, however, had gone full princess mode in a sparkly dress, excited beyond words. As they slid into the car, Keanu turned around with a grin. "Wow, Emily, you look like a star." Emily giggled. "Like my bracelet." She held up her wrist proudly. Keanu chuckled. "Exactly." Sarah felt her stomach flutter at his easygoing warmth. He made them feel so seen, like they weren't just another charity case, but people he truly cared about. The restaurant Keanu had chosen was nice, but not too fancy. It was cozy, intimate, and surprisingly quiet for a Hollywood actor's choice. "You come here often?" Sarah asked as they sat down. Keanu shrugged. "Yeah. They have the best homemade pasta." Emily gasped. "I love pasta." Keanu laughed. "Then you're in the right place, kiddo." The meal was filled with easy conversation and laughter. Emily told Keanu all about school, her new daycare, and how she had made a drawing of him and her mom. Sarah, meanwhile, found herself relaxing more than she had in years. There was no stress, no exhaustion, just peace. And then, just as dessert arrived, Keanu turned to her with an unreadable expression. "There's something I wanted to ask you, Sarah." She froze, her heart hammering. "What is it?" Keanu hesitated, then smiled softly. "Have you ever thought about going back to school?" Sarah blinked, caught completely off guard. "What?" He leaned forward. "You're smart. You're hardworking. You've already proven that you can handle an office job. But have you ever thought about what you want?" Sarah opened her mouth, then closed it. Because the truth was, she hadn't. For years, all she had thought about was survival. Paying rent, feeding Emily, keeping the lights on. What she wanted had never even been part of the equation. Keanu must have seen the conflict on her face because he continued gently. "I'm not saying you have to, but if you wanted to, I'd help. I know people who could get you into a good program, maybe even with a scholarship. No pressure, just something to think about." Sarah felt overwhelmed. This man had already done so much, and now he was offering her a future. She looked down at her hands, then over at Emily, who was happily munching on her cake. Could she do this? Could she really dream of something more? Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I'm good enough." Keanu reached across the table and took her hand in his. "You are," he said firmly. "You always have been." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Maybe, just maybe, she was finally ready to believe that. Sarah sat by her apartment window that night, staring at the city lights twinkling in the distance. Her heart was still racing from dinner, from his words. "Have you ever thought about going back to school?" Those words had burrowed deep into her mind. It wasn't just an offer. It was an invitation to dream again. For years, she had shut that part of herself down. College had been a far-off fantasy, crushed by the weight of real-world responsibilities. Rent, bills, food, those were the things that mattered. And yet, Keanu had looked at her like he truly believed in her. She exhaled shakily, turning toward the small couch where Emily lay curled up, fast asleep, still wearing her bracelet. "Do I dare say yes?" But another voice whispered, "Can you afford to say no?" Sarah wasn't just living for herself. She was living for Emily. And maybe, just maybe, this was the second chance she never thought she'd get. Taking the first step. The next morning, Sarah called Keanu. "Hey," he answered, sounding hopeful. "Okay," she said before she could second-guess herself. "I want to try." She could practically hear the smile in his voice. "That's what I was hoping you'd say." An unexpected visit to a university. 2 days later, Sarah found herself standing in front of a prestigious community college, clutching her bag tightly. Keanu had pulled a few strings, setting up a meeting with the admissions office. "Just take a look," he had told her. "No pressure. Just see what's possible." She had almost backed out twice. What was she even doing here? But as she stepped inside, something shifted. She saw students her age, some younger, some older, all walking with purpose. They weren't rich. They weren't handed success. They were just people trying to build better lives. I could be one of them. The admissions counselor, a kind woman named Rebecca, smiled warmly as she gestured for Sarah to sit. "So, Keanu tells me you're thinking about going back to school." Sarah exhaled. I guess so. I just don't know if it's realistic." Rebecca leaned forward. "Let's talk about what you want. What excites you? Sarah hesitated. No one had asked her that in a long time. I've always loved writing, she admitted softly. Stories, words. I used to dream about being a journalist, but that feels like another life. Rebecca's smile widened. It's not another life, Sarah. It's your life. And you can still make it happen. Sarah swallowed hard. But I don't have the money. That's why we have scholarships, Rebecca said simply. Based on your financial situation, you could qualify for a full ride. Sarah's breath caught. A full ride. Rebecca nodded. You'd just have to apply. And work hard, of course. But if this is what you want, it's possible. Possible. The word felt foreign. For so long, everything had felt impossible. And now, here she was, sitting in an office being told she had a chance. Tears burned in her eyes. What do I have to do? She whispered. Rebecca smiled. We start with an application. A conversation that changed everything. That evening, Sarah sat in her apartment, staring at the application form. Keanu had checked in earlier, asking how it went. She had told him everything. Now, all that stood between her and the future was this piece of paper. Her fingers trembled as she picked up a pen. Do I deserve this? Then she looked at Emily, who was coloring at the kitchen table. This wasn't just for her. This was for the little girl who had spent too many birthdays alone. The little girl who deserved a mother who wasn't exhausted and broken. With a deep breath, Sarah signed her name. She was doing this. Keanu's surprise. A week later, Sarah was officially accepted. She sat on the edge of her couch, gripping the letter. I got in, she whispered. Emily looked up, confused. Got in where? Mommy's going to school, Sarah said, smiling through her tears. Emily gasped, then threw her arms around Sarah's neck. You're gonna be so smart, Mommy. Sarah laughed, squeezing her daughter tight. Her phone buzzed. A message from Keanu. Keanu, meet me tomorrow. I have a surprise. Sarah's stomach flipped. What now? A life-changing gift. The next afternoon, Keanu met Sarah at a small cafe. He was waiting with a man in a suit. Sarah, meet Jake, Keanu said. He's a real estate agent. Sarah frowned. Real estate. Keanu pulled out an envelope and slid it toward her. She hesitated before opening it, then froze. Inside was a key and a contract for a new apartment. Her head snapped up. Keanu, what is this? Keanu's expression softened. It's a new home. For you and Emily. Sarah's breath came in short gasps. I can't afford. You don't have to, Keanu interrupted gently. It's taken care of. Just say yes. Tears spilled down Sarah's face. No more leaking ceilings. No more broken heaters. No more fear of eviction. A safe place. A home. Why? She choked out. Keanu smiled softly. Because you and Emily deserve a fresh start. You took the first step. Let me help with the rest. Sarah covered her mouth, shaking. Just say yes, Keanu repeated. And for the first time in her life, Sarah let herself say yes to something good. She threw her arms around Keanu, sobbing into his chest. Thank you, she whispered over and over. Keanu hugged her back. Welcome home, Sarah. The beginning of a new future. That evening, Sarah and Emily walked into their new apartment for the first time. It wasn't extravagant, but it was theirs. Emily raced around the rooms, giggling. Mommy, I have my own room. Sarah leaned against the doorway, pressing a hand to her heart. For the first time in years, she felt safe. And for the first time ever, she let herself believe in a future where she and Emily didn't just survive. They thrived. Sarah stood in the middle of her new apartment, taking in the warmth of her new home. The fresh paint on the walls, the steady hum of the heater, everything felt safe, something she hadn't experienced in years. Emily was already running through the small but cozy space, excitedly exploring her very own room. Mommy, look, She called, holding up a stuffed bear that had been left as a housewarming gift. A note was attached. Every child deserves a soft place to land. Enjoy your new home. Keanu. Sarah pressed the note against her chest, her eyes welling up. This wasn't just a fresh start. It was a second chance. And Keanu Reeves had given it to her, not out of pity, but because he truly believed in her. The first morning in a new home. The next morning, Sarah woke up to sunlight streaming through her new bedroom window. She lay still for a moment, just listening to the silence. No noisy neighbors arguing in the hallway. No dripping pipes. No aching exhaustion from pulling an overnight shift. For the first time in years, she felt rested. She climbed out of bed and walked to the small kitchen, where she found Emily sitting at the table, happily eating a bowl of cereal. Emily looked up with a bright smile. "Mommy, I love our new home." Sarah leaned down and kissed the top of her head. "Me too, sweetheart." Then she noticed something on the counter, another envelope. Her heart skipped a beat as she picked it up, already recognizing the handwriting. "Sarah, this is just the beginning. I want you to dream bigger. I want you to believe that you deserve everything this world has to offer. Check your bank account. Your friend, Keanu." Sarah's hands shook as she reached for her phone and logged into her bank app. She gasped, nearly dropping the phone. Her balance had quadrupled. She blinked, her heart racing. Then she noticed the memo. "For tuition and emergency savings, so you never have to worry again." Sarah sat down, completely overwhelmed. Keanu had already given her a job opportunity, a home, a new future. And now, he had given her security. For the first time in years, she didn't have to be afraid of what would happen next. A conversation that meant everything. Later that afternoon, Sarah met Keanu at a small cafe, the same one where he had first offered her a way out of her struggles. She didn't even know what to say as she sat across from him. "You okay?" he asked gently. Sarah exhaled shakily. "No, because I don't know how to thank you." Keanu smiled, sipping his coffee. "You already have." She shook her head. "Keanu, you've done more for me than anyone ever has. You gave Emily and me a future." He set his cup down, looking at her seriously. "No, Sarah, you gave yourself a future. I just helped open the door. You walked through it." She swallowed past the lump in her throat. "Why me? Why did you do all this for me?" Keanu leaned forward, his expression filled with something deep, something Sarah couldn't quite describe. "Because I've been there," he said softly. "I know what it's like to lose everything, to feel like no one sees you, to fight just to keep going." Sarah's breath hitched. "But I also know that sometimes all it takes is one person to believe in you," Keanu continued. "Someone did that for me when I was younger. And now, I just want to do the same for others." Tears slipped down Sarah's cheeks. "You are that person, Keanu," she whispered. "For me, for Emily, you changed our lives." Keanu smiled softly. "Good. That's all I ever wanted." A year later, a new beginning. 1 year later, everything had changed. Sarah had finished her first year of school, studying journalism while working a flexible part-time job at a media company. She was no longer drowning in exhaustion. She and Emily had built a real home, one filled with laughter, warmth, and hope. And Keanu, he was still part of their lives. Emily called him Uncle Keanu. He had become family. As Sarah sat at her desk one evening, finishing an assignment, she felt something she hadn't in years. Peace. She looked at a picture sitting on her desk, a photo of her, Emily, and Keanu at the beach. She smiled, brushing her fingers over the frame. "Thank you," she whispered, not just to Keanu, but to herself, for finally believing that she deserved more.